We're moving today. We're doing a lot of stuff today. We're back, Krueg Show, back with you on a Thursday night. Got the Hall of Fame game going. Raiders and Jaguars. Watching a little bit of that. Giants lost again today. Niners with the off day in camp, and we thought, man, this would be a great time to talk a little 49er football. We talked to Grant Cohn earlier today. That was enjoyable. And now we have Jack Hammer, who does a great job covering the 49ers for the Santa Rosa Press-Democrat. He's with us on the Krueg Show to talk about camp. What's up, Jack? How are you, man? Good to see you.
I'm good. How you doing, Larry?
I'm doing great. And, Niners, so the schedule is like 3 days on and then they get a day off, or is it 4 days on, they get a day off? What is the training camp routine at this point?
Right now, it seems like right now they're moving to 3 on and 1 off. I know they had like 4, I think, the first 4 days they practice straight and then before their day off. But usually it's 3 on and 3 off, I think, from here until they go to Minnesota.
Well, already people in the chat are recognizing MF says, Larry's been putting in work today. That's right. And then somebody else said, MF says, love the shades in the picture. Okay. What if somebody else said? Rick said, Larry outworks everyone. Always 49er material to watch. All right, let's get right into the 49ers out of the chute before we jump into the chat and get everybody going. What do you think of Trey Lance? Are you happy with what you've seen with Trey? Are you disappointed with what you've seen from Trey? Are you concerned about the accuracy? I think he's completing less than half of his passes, but I've heard from Grant that he's really challenged. I've missed a couple practices doing fill-in on 95.7 this week, so I haven't necessarily been at practice every day, but that he's not doing the check down thing that Sudfeld's doing, that they're really challenging him at the line, more bump and run, and he's actually going down the field, some harder to complete throws. What's your evaluation so far, Trey?
It's been I've got him at just over 50%, 50.5. So put it to 50. And I think it's been that's pretty indicative of what he's done. It's been some good, some bad, some amazing, some awful. It's been, it's been really hit or miss. I don't think he's really got into a rhythm at any point in camp yet. And, do I think it's time to be concerned? No, we're only 7 days in. We still have over a month to go before their first regular season game. But right now, the offense as a whole, Trey Lance included, is not in rhythm.
Well, and what do you make of Trey's accuracy? Do you think he's a quarterback that's going to struggle to? I mean, we saw him complete. He's never really been a 70% completion percentage guy. Are we ever going to see that from him, that level of efficiency? Or not when I say ever, when I'm saying this year? Or do you think, get ready for about a 55% completion percentage? And is that a disaster if you're Shanahan?
I think that if he's around 55%, I think it is a disaster for the 49ers, because it shouldn't be that way. There's almost always somebody open in the scheme that they run. I think what needs to happen is it's cool to see him take the shots down the field, but there are times when he does need to take the checkdowns. There's a time and a place for everything. Maybe part of it, he's maybe just trying to really work the deep throws right now, and he's going to come back to work in the offense and hit everything that's there. But he just hasn't been doing it yet. You talked about accuracy and those kind of things. It's weird because he makes some of the some of the toughest throws right on the mark, and then a wide open out route just sails over the top of the receiver's head, not even close to him. So those are the kind of things that are for me concerning, is that there's just a lack of consistency with his arm right now.
Are you witnessing any what you feel like is frustration from any of the people on the offense, any of the coaches? Are they seemingly frustrated with his play, or do you think that they're not as concerned as maybe even we are right now?
Yeah, no, I don't think they're concerned or overly concerned. I think that like Shanahan said the other day, because he'd had a couple of rough practices and he'd thrown some interceptions and things like that. And the question was, I don't think he was asked if he was concerned, but he basically said, we want to make sure the ball is going to the right place. If it ends up being an incompletion or an interception, at least throwing it to the right area, knowing that they're processing it right is what we're looking for mostly. And so I think for the most part, from that standpoint, they're happy with what they're seeing.
It's funny when I talked to Steve Young a few weeks ago, he kind of mentioned that. He mentioned that he felt like Trey was an outstanding processor of what he sees, and that in Steve's mind, that was vitally important. He said, now the issue is, can he get it there? Can he get it there on time and accurately? Like, he knows where to go with the football. It's just a matter of the mechanics of getting the ball there on time and with some accuracy. Would you agree with that? That's bigger. That's more of the issue. And do you view that as maybe just, his footwork isn't quite right, or his tempo was a little off? Because in Steve's mind, one of the more difficult things is to actually correctly process what you're seeing and go to the right places with the ball. Once you're processing correctly, you can work on your mechanics to improve actually getting it there.
Yeah, there's definitely a part of that, what Young said there, in terms of he's seen it, he's throwing the ball to the right spot, he's just not getting it to the guy. That is a positive, is that, like I said, like on the wide open out route, it's there. He's throwing it to the right guy. The underneath route, it's there, and he's throwing it to him. It's just a matter now of making the throw accurately. Once he does that, then things really start to take off.
What is your guess on, I think the Niners play their first preseason game. Is it a week from today?
A week from tomorrow.
Week from tomorrow. What do you think the reps are going to look like, or the quarterback split in that game? What would your guess be as far as how Shanahan splits it up?
Yeah, I would expect to see Lance maybe for a couple of series, since he's taking over. If it was Garoppolo who had been around the block a little bit, maybe a series, but with Lance, they might go 2, just to get him a little bit more into the rhythm of the game.
And then Sudfeld and Purdy in that order. And what is that competition looking like, Jack?
I think that's, when you look at when I look at Sudfeld and Purdy, I think Sudfeld is ahead of Purdy. He's going to be the backup. I think Purdy shows some things, but he's still getting there. He's not getting enough reps really to make a big, decision on him. And we haven't seen any of that switch at this point. So at this point, I think it's going to be Sudfeld at number 2, and then you'll see Purdy as the 3rd.
If I don't lead you in any direction, I just said, hey, you've been at camp for the last week and you've watched the first week of 49er training camp. Who jumps out to you without me leading you in any direction?
Brandon Ayuk on the offensive side of the ball has just been amazing. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Tarvarius Ward and Emmanuel Mosley are the top 2 on the defense that I would say.
It sounds like there's an awful lot of people that keep the theme of, man, this is a really good 49er defense. I keep hearing that theme over and over again. I see it as a dramatically improved secondary, a dominating linebacker core, and a defensive line that is maybe not quite as talented as it was a year ago. I'm a little concerned that they lost DJ Jones and what that may do to the inside run, the run stop unit. That's kind of how I see the defense this year. I think they might improve on the back end, and maybe they'll regress a little bit up front. How do you see the defense on the 3 levels?
I agree with you. I think they're going to be better at the linebacker and the safety. The only spot that I would say a little bit differently is I think their pass rush is going to be as good, if not better, than last year. But I do agree with you that the run defense might take a little bit of a step back with their front 4. I don't without DJ Jones, to clog it up in the middle.
The unfortunate thing so far, they've already seen a couple guys go down for the year. They lost Mo Hurst last week to a torn bicep. And then I saw Jordan Matthews went down this week with an ACL. I kind of like Jordan Matthews as far as, I know he was a wide receiver trying to transition to tight end. Last year he tried to do it and wasn't successful. This year, though, he had put on some good weight. I thought he looked bigger. He looked about closer to 235, 240. And I thought, man, this guy could give Dwelly at least a run in the preseason. And then sure enough, Matthews tears the ACL and his year is done. And who knows about the status of his career. How big do you think those 2 injuries are?
The one with Matthews, that's just too bad because he was having a really solid camp. He was making plays all over the place, and I agree with you. I think he would have been able to give Dwelly a little bit of a run for the money for a spot on the roster because he was making plays, it seemed like, on a regular basis. And so that's I think that's a big one. It's interesting because both of these guys are guys I would have had on the bubble of the roster. The same thing with Mo Hurst. So they're both tough injuries, especially for both those guys because of the injury history with Hurst, and then where how it sits with Matthews. I don't know if that drastically changes the 49ers plans in any way, though.
MF in the chat says DJ Jones is a huge loss. What I think he is, and MF is agreeing with me, but I mean, how do you feel about it? I mean, DJ, I love DJ the guy. I thought he was a terrific person. I know he was a leader on that defense, really a tough guy, a quiet leader, but a tough guy, and a tremendous player against the run and underrated as far as an interior pass rusher. I don't blame the Niners for letting him go. I thought Denver probably overpaid him. But what do you think? What did you think of that loss when you heard the news? And now that you've seen them for a week, what do you think about, what do they lose with DJ that they're going to miss?
Yeah, I agree with you in that for the money that Denver's spending, that's not somewhere that the 49ers should have gone. Jones is a guy who's going to play about 55% of the snaps inside. He's more of a run stuffer than he is a pass rusher. And I think that overall the 49ers defensive line could get better again against the rush. I think Javon Kinlaw has looked solid. Javon Kinlaw, we've already seen him do more through the first 7 days of practice than he did last week through this same period, or last year, excuse me. And so it all really kind of falls on him. If he can come in and step in and be the guy the 49ers thought they were getting at 13, this could be it can minimize that loss, especially because of the increased pass rush.
Is your bigger concern on the offense Trey or the offensive line in front of him, Jack?
If you're asking, my biggest concern would be the offensive line. I'm more concerned with the offensive line than I am with Trey Lance. I think Lance, I haven't seen enough of Lance trying to work the offense. You understand what I'm saying? We haven't seen them do a move the ball period. It's just been, 3rd and 10, 2nd and 5 situation, things like that. And so I want to see them try to actually run the ball, move the ball down the field, because when they did that for a very brief moment on Tuesday, it looked really good.
And you're starting 5 across the board. I mean, now as far as on the offensive line, and we know Trent Williams, one of the best left tackles in the game. So he's the left tackle. Is it Banks at left guard? Who do you think's the front runner at center? Is Burford going to be the starter week 1 at right guard? We expect McGlinchey to be back, but how do you see the Niners offensive line as far as left to right outside of Williams? It seems like it's very much written in pencil at this point.
Yeah, well, we know that Trent Williams is going to be at left tackle. We know Mike McGlinchey is going to be at right tackle. Those two, I think we know those pretty solid. Aaron Banks seems like he's entrenched at left guard. The deal with having Brunskill and Brendel competing at center kind of put that right guard position in flux. The rookie Spencer Burford's looked really good there, though. I really like what I see out of him. He's I think going to be a player for the 49ers for a long period of time inside there. It's really about getting that center situation figured out. And do you want to go with Brunskill or Brendel? It seems to me like they want Brunskill to win the job, but he hasn't done enough yet to take it.
Yeah, Burford is really interesting because, University of Texas San Antonio had a terrific run game. I mean, Sincere McCormick is a really good running back, and I know Shanahan described Burford as a similar scheme fit. They grabbed him in the 4th round. Very versatile player. He's played both guard spots, both tackle spots, and if anything, I thought he looked like maybe a right tackle and like a guy who would need to bulk up to play guard. But then when you watch his college film, Jack, I mean, this guy's a beast. I mean, seriously, he's throwing guys around, and he's really got a lot of desire. He's got long arms, long levers, and he really gives, for a guy who looks like he could probably put on 20 more pounds and not, and easily carry it. He looks like he's got a lot of pop in the run game. He's got a lot of power in his upper body. What are you seeing from Burford? Were you surprised that Burford has gotten so much run with the ones? And give me your description of what you like about him.
My biggest surprise along the offensive line was the fact that they decided to have the competition between Brunskill and Brendel. I assumed before training camp that if they decided to do that, then it was going to be a competition at right guard between Burford and Jalen Moore. We haven't seen Moore really take much of any reps at right guard. It's been all Spencer Burford as far as the first team snaps, at least. So that's played out well. I really like Burford. You watch him in pass protection, and he doesn't rush. He has a really strong base. He kind of lets that guy get into him, and he's strong enough to be able to hold them up and just stop people in their tracks. And he did a really good job of it the other day during their one-on-one drills with the defensive line. He just looked really solid.
If Williams and McGlinchey are the tackles, do they have a swing tackle, a third tackle? Is it School? Is it McKivitz? Is it Jalen Moore? Who do you think's the lead candidate for that swing tackle position?
I would say from what I've seen, it would be Colton McKivitz. I think he's the most. He's done the best job of as far as the backup tackles. It would be Jalen. And another piece about Colton McKivitz that I like is he can play inside as well.
Yeah, and McKivitz, going back to the draft, was one of those gold helmet designation players for the Niners. They did actually waive him one time, but he played some big snaps for them last year, and obviously they trusted him in some key moments with the season on the line. And it kind of surprised some of us back last year. It's going to be interesting now. They have greater depth on the offensive line. Exactly how many do they take, and do they do they go with the young guys? Do they go with more of the veteran guys who could plug and play right away? That's going to be interesting. What did you think of Trey Sermon last year compared to what you're seeing this summer?
He's definitely bulked up. That's the one thing. He's put on some weight in a good way, and it hasn't slowed him down. He still looks like the same guy. He's a between the tackle runner for the most part, but he looks like he has some speed to him and explosiveness right now.
Yeah, it's really a great-looking running back room when you look at it. I mean, Juszczyk obviously is a very proven player at fullback, and he's a jack of all trades, very valuable. And then Elijah Mitchell showed what he had last year. He doesn't fumble. And he's really hard to he'll make whatever he's got. If it's blocked for 2 yards, he'll get you 3. I mean, he falls forward. He's really efficient. I love that about him. The guy that really to me stands out physically is Jeff Wilson. I just think Wilson looks lighter and faster and more explosive. I think that's the best I've ever seen Wilson. Then there's Ty Davis Price. He was the 3rd round pick at LSU. We've already talked about Sermon. JaMychal Hasty looks pretty good. And then Jordan Mason from Georgia Tech, undrafted rookie free agent. He looks good. I mean, 220 pounds, pretty shifty, can catch it. He didn't throw it to him a lot at G-Tech, but you would never know it based on his reps. He looks pretty comfortable catching the football. What are your thoughts on the running backs? Is it Mitchell and everybody else is clearly behind him? Or do you think this is a little bit more like, let's see how the preseason plays out? How do you, and I know you got a pretty keen eye for this stuff. What do you think of that running back room?
I think the running back room is really good. My only concern, like with Tyrion Davis Price, is I don't know if these guys can be able to get those outside runs that the 49ers like to run. Those tosses or where they do the handoff and it's a sweep basically out of a handoff. I'm not sure if he can do that. I don't know if he has the speed to do that, but he definitely has the speed to get north and south on you between the tackles. He runs with power. There was the first day that I saw him in pads on Tuesday. What I wrote down in my notes was he was just running people over, and you could hear there was one where he ran over. I think it was DJ Jones, and you could hear the shoulder pads on the sidelines over the music that they pump in. So in between the tackles, he's going to be really good. The way I see this running back room shaking out, I think it's going to be between Jeff Wilson Jr. and JaMychal Hasty at the end of the day. And I would lean more towards Jeff Wilson Jr. because I agree with you. I think he looks good. He looks healthy, and he brings an ability to do multiple things for you. He can play fullback, he can play halfback, he can play special teams, and because of that, I think he makes the roster over JaMychal Hasty.
Yeah, Wilson just he seems like he's at his ideal weight. I mean, he's moving really well.
Yes.
And he looks a little bit leaner, a little smaller than he has in the past, but he's obviously in great shape. He's got great stop and start. He's got great explosion. He's tough. Jeff Wilson to me looks really, really good. Well, let's talk about the defense. A lot of talk about Drake Jackson, and I've heard some great things about Drake. I didn't like what I saw at the mini camp. To me, it just seemed like he didn't look like D Ford, like a speed rusher or an edge rusher. He looked kind of more like Arden Key, like at 275 pound, almost like guard tackle tweener. What are you seeing from Drake Jackson? I mean, I've heard some incredible things about him, Jack. I don't know what to believe at this point, because it seems like there's a positive press campaign out there for Drake Jackson. I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of him. But I've heard some people say that he's looking spectacular. Give me your thought.
Well, I was kind of in the same boat as you during the OTAs and mini camps. I didn't think he looked all that good. When they did go up against the offensive line, he was struggled. He's looked better in training camp. I've seen him beat Justin School around the edge a couple of times, and that's a positive, because the only guy that he could do that to during OTAs and minicamp was Alejandro, the number 77, who was the international
Alfredo
player.
Gutierrez.
Thank you. I almost went with the wrong one there. Yes, I almost went with Alejandro Villanueva, who I know, because I started to say it wasn't the right name. But you saw him actually beat Justin School a couple of times during team drills. He's looked a lot better than he did. So I think that time between OTAs and training camp really has paid off for him.
That to me is going to be really one of the more interesting. Like if you said to me, give me something about the 49ers that you really don't know, that you're looking to discover early in the season, I would say the snap breakdown on that D line. Like, what's that going to look like? Is Jackson going to get a bunch of snaps? Is Ebukam going to get a bunch of snaps? How about Amenahue? How about Kerry Hyder? How about Kamoko Toure? How about Jordan Willis? I mean, they got a bunch of guys there that are all, like if you told me that Willis got huge snaps, I wouldn't bat an eye. If you told me that Kerry Hyder or Drake Jackson got huge snaps, I wouldn't, none of these things would surprise me. I think they got a lot of players that are kind of similar. They're not similar players, but they're like similar level. And it's just kind of like, are they going to run them in and out, kind of like hockey lines? We saw that last year. Is it going to be a week-to-week thing, or do you think there'll be a clear delineation, ones, twos, and that kind of thing? Opposite Bosa, all those DNs, Ebukam, Jackson, Amenahue, Hyder, Toure, Jordan Willis. Who do you have the most confidence in to play the best and to get the most snaps opposite Bosa?
For me, that would be Samson Ebukam. I really like what he's done. He's since he came to the 49ers, now he's not bouncing around. When he was at the Rams, he had to go between linebacker and defensive end. I don't think he never was able to really get settled in. With the 49ers, he was able to do that. And we saw around midpoint of last season, they put him into the starting lineup. That's when they shifted Eric Armstead inside, and all of a sudden the defense took off. And I think that was a big part of it. Eric Armstead's better on the inside, and they had a good speed rusher opposite of Bosa, and that whole group worked really well together. I really like what Samson Ebukam brings to the table.
How about Kinlaw? This is a big year for Kinlaw, and I've heard people, McGlinchey and others, say, man, expect Kinlaw to have a big year, and he's obviously in terrific shape, but the knee's always a problem. He plays kind of upright. He doesn't play with a lot of leverage. He exposes his legs. He's missed some time with some injuries. I mean, it's go time for Javon. It's time for him to step up and fill those shoes that DJ Jones leaves behind, and I don't know that there's anybody who can really do that job as well as Kinlaw. How's he looking to you?
He's looking good, but I do agree with you that the pad level is the whole key with him, because if he can just keep his shoulder pads down, he can be dominant. He tends to get up a little too high and start chest bumping with you. He needs to, if he just gets down, because he's really tall. I think that's part of his issue there. He really needs to be able to get those knees bent and drive and get up underneath those shoulder pads. If he can do that, he has the strength and the power to be dominant. He just needs to do that. I don't know if he's there right now. But he looks good. He looks like he's healthy. He looks like he's ahead of where he was in 2021, at least.
3 new faces on that defensive front that are all going to kind of be counted on to play a role. Hassan Ridgeway, and I know Ridgeway's dinged up right now. He's not practicing, and he'll be out for a little bit. But then there's Kamoko Toure, who comes over from the Colts, and then Robert Kemdiche, who I loved him at Ole Miss, but obviously he's bounced around a little bit, but what a talent he is. He's 295. He moves exceptionally well at 295. And in some ways, Kemdiche's got linebacker-like movements for, a guy close to 300 pounds. Any of those three guys shine to you? Give me your thumbnail sketch on those three new 49ers.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by Mccrary. I thought we'd see a little bit more from him than we have so far. I think we're starting to see a little bit of why he was available for the 49ers when they picked him up. He definitely has the speed, but he just doesn't really, you look at him compared to like Drake Jackson, and he doesn't have that bend that Drake Jackson has. I think that's why, why Jackson's might be able to push him for those snaps. Kinlaw is a solid veteran type of guy, definitely fighting for a spot on the roster for sure, though. So as far as the new guys on the block, it's going to be. I'd be a little surprised to see them get big snaps because I think what they have in place already from last year was pretty solid.
Who's the Niners' best linebacker in your mind?
Well, Fred Warner's obvious, easily. Fred Warner's the best linebacker. You put Warner and Greenlaw and Azeez Al-Shaair together. That's just a really good group. And even if you have two of those guys on and you put another guy, somebody else out there like Oren Burks the other day, you don't notice much of a difference because the other two are so good.
It's such an interesting group this year because, you mentioned the top three guys, Warner and Greenlaw and Azeez Al-Shaair. And I think all three of those guys have all pro or Pro Bowl kind of talent. And then Oren Burks is a special teamer, but you know what? I think he's got some ability to play scrimmage if they had to. I really like Curtis Robinson, the Stanford kid, as a special teamer. He's smart, and he's not only is he smart, he seems like he's aggressive, he's tough. And then they brought in, some decent looking undrafted guys. They still have Demetrius Flanagan-Foles, who's kind of an underrated player in his own right. But I love Marcelino Mccrary Ball from Indiana. The physical ability of the kid Alubi from San Diego State is something to behold. This guy's sub 4.5. He's flying around. And then Jeremiah Gemmel played at Carolina. I can't see him making this team, but he was very productive in the ACC. They're stacked at linebacker. How do you see? Will they keep six? And who does Marcelino Mccrary Ball or Alubi even have a shot here? Or how do you see the backups behind the top three?
I think they keep five. I think it's the three that we already mentioned: Flanagan, Foles, however they say his name there. He's solid. I think he's the fourth. And then you have Warren Burks. I think they're pretty well set with those five. Burks to me is kind of like Mark Nazasha, right? He's that guy that's going to play the Sam. He can step in there, but he's your special teams ace. That's what I see kind of his role on this team being. But they have some really good linebackers behind them that are going to make it on the practice squad. I think that's where you see Robinson land. And Alubi, he's a heck of a player too. We saw him get a pick a couple days ago where he's diving for the ball. It looked really nice.
Do you see them, last year in camp, they moved the linebacker, I forget his name, they moved him to Denver for a day 3 pick. And he played well for Denver. And I can almost see them doing the same thing here just because, they've got some really good looking young linebackers and, guys like Demetrius Flanagan-Foles and Curtis Robinson. Those guys are solid NFL backers as well. All these guys are going to be on somebody's team this year. Even some of these guys like McCrary Ball, to me, was really impressive the way he flies around. He's super fast for a rookie linebacker who a lot of times rookie linebackers, because their head is spinning and they're thinking so much, they're not decisive. And even if they have great speed, individual like 40-yard dash speed, it doesn't necessarily translate because they're playing slower because they got to read and react. Marcelino Mccrary Ball is flying around the field. He wears number 40. I can't wait to see this kid in the preseason. What do you think of him?
He's solid. I think there's a number of those guys. He's one of them. And like kind of to your point, there could be a move with one of those guys being traded towards the end of the preseason. A team loses a linebacker. We talked about it so much with Jimmy Garoppolo about a quarterback to go down. But I think you could see that with one of those linebackers too, because they have a really good depth there, and those guys are all solid.
How is this? Is the secondary in your mind an improved unit from a year ago?
Absolutely. They're way ahead of where they were last year from the fact that they have two solid cornerbacks, and I think behind them they have enough guys that they can make it work where they're not going to have to bring people off the street like we saw last year. They're in a much better situation. Jason Verett, really good cornerback, but they went into last year really he needed to play well in order for their defense to work, and it lasted less than a game. And so I don't think they were really well prepared for it there. Diamador Lenore looks better this year. I really like Samuel Womack, the rookie. I think he's very good. And I think just overall, that secondary group is going to be much better.
It's definitely a deeper group than we've seen in the past. How's Verett moving around? I saw him working out on the side field. It seems like it's always about health with Jason Verett. But, man, when he's healthy, he's a near Pro Bowl caliber talent. I mean, he's got tremendous feet, tremendous knowledge to play the position, great instincts. It's just about health. Can he stay on the field? How's he looking? What is his prognosis to make this team?
We haven't really been able to see him much. I saw the same video as you because he was doing his workout before we came out. So I saw that. Haven't really been able to see him run around yet. But I agree with you on Jason Verett. When he's healthy, he's a top 5 cornerback in the NFL, maybe top 10, kind of a guy. He's a very talented cornerback. It's a shame that the health has just completely ruined his career in a lot of ways.
Has Ambry Thomas taken a step back from last year? Because, man, last year in camp, he looked like a fish out of water. I thought, man, they're going to wind up cutting a guy they took in the 3rd round. But then they kept him on the roster. And sure enough, it looked like a wise move because as the season went on, he got nothing but better and better and better and better. By the end of the year, he looked like one of their better cover guys. He's definitely got the physical skills. But man, from what I've seen I haven't been to every practice, but it seems like he's gotten toasted a few times.
Yeah, no. If for the 49ers, when they're struggling, if they need to try to get somebody deep, that's the guy to go after because he struggles. That was his big issue last year was being able to cover the deep ball, and that's I think partly why they played so soft in the secondary over the second half of the year. And we've seen that come up a number of times. Danny Gray's been just kind of shut down in camp. They put him on 20 a couple times, 2 big deep balls, one down the left sideline, one down the right sideline. It's a continual. Unfortunately for him right now, it's just been a continual theme. And I really liked Ambry Thomas coming out of college, and he's really struggled.
If you had to say the biggest disappointment in your eyes through a week or so of camp, what name comes to mind? I think it might be somebody like that's a tough one. It is because it's early too.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to say disappointment, I would say maybe the way that the center position is playing out. I think would be my biggest disappointment. I thought those guys were going to be able to hold their own a little bit better than what we've seen so far.
Is there a disappointment with Brunskill based on maybe how he played last year in the playoffs? I mean, because it seems like he was a starter, and now it's like I don't know if he's going to be a starter.
I mean, the fact that he's taken those, he hasn't been able to take the job at center yet. We'll see. Maybe after the day off, maybe tomorrow they come in and he is the guy all of a sudden. But he hasn't. I don't think either of the centers have really stood out. I think you put them side to side. It doesn't matter whether it's 64 or 60 on the field. You're kind of getting the same thing. Brunskill maybe a couple of times with some bad snaps, but other than that, in terms of the actual pass blocking, it doesn't seem like one is really any different than the other.
What do you make of the 49ers' commitment to improve the special teams in the offseason? Brian Schneider was brought in to coordinate the unit, and then they invested guys. They invested in Danny Gray, and as you know, he's obviously a speedster. They also invested in a number of guys on the defensive side. George Odom, definitely a special teamer. They've basically said here we're going to take a couple of key spots and devote it to special team type players. Warren Burks was brought in to hear Schneider talk about it. He gave Shanahan a list, and guys like Odom were right near the top of the list. Same with Warren Burks. How is that? I mean, can you evaluate special teams in training camp practice? How do you see the Niners special team unit compared to what it was a year ago?
I don't know. I'm not good enough with the special teams to really be able to see what, to know how much better they look. But their list, like you said, was Warren Burks and Ray McLeod. They brought in as well. George Odom. Those were their top 3 on their list. They got all 3. When Brian Snyder was asked about who's standing out amongst the special teams unit this week, that's who he talked about, was Odom and Burks standing out. So they also get Tarvarius Moore back, and that's going to help out their special teams as well. I think if they can improve their special teams and just get them out of the bottom of the pile, I think that can really help this team out overall.
It's funny. I was talking to Matt Barrows the other day, and I said, give me an offensive lineman that has impressed you, or one or two. And he said Burford and Poe, as far as the young offensive linemen. If I threw this same question to you, but instead of saying offensive line, I said defensive back. Give me a young DB. I mean, they got a number of them here. Samuel Womack, Quantrez Knight, Tariq Castro Fields played at Penn State. Leon O'Neal, safety from A&M, is guaranteed he's going to make the team. Taylor Hawkins was a really solid corner at San Diego State. They've got him lined up as a backup at free safety. Of the young DBs, is there one or two that has caught your eye? I know you already kind of mentioned Womack, but what do you think of the young group?
Yeah, I really like Womack, and he fits what the Niners want, right? He's a guy that can play. He can play outside. He has the speed to play outside, but he has the ability to play inside as well because he's good with leverage and those types of things. So I think he fits what they're looking for in multiple ways. Beyond that, I know he's not a young guy. Tarvarius Moore has stepped up, and he's looked really good this camp. Coming back from that Achilles tear, he made an interception a couple days ago where he got up high. Really shows that he's coming back from it. I haven't seen enough of like Tariq Castro Fields or some of these other guys to really say that they're standing out to me. Taylor Hawkins had a good play a couple of days ago as well on a deep pass, so he's done well as well.
Do you think the practices with Minnesota are going to be valuable? I mean, what are you looking for in those joint practices? And do you think they're more valuable than a preseason game? The preseason's only three games this year.
I think those practices in Minnesota are going to be more valuable to the 49ers than any of those preseason games, because you're actually going to get the starters working extended reps against other starters, and you're not going to get that in the preseason game. You get a little more of a controlled environment in those scrimmages. I think the 49ers are going to get a lot of good work in there. I wish I was going out to Minnesota for it.
Jack, last one. Any direction you want to go. Give me an observation of camp that you have that maybe I haven't led you towards. Is there something that has stood out to you, good or bad, that you think is noteworthy for 49er fans?
I think the offense needs to figure out what they're going to do. Trey Lance has looked pretty good the last couple days in the red zone drills. They did those on both Tuesday and Wednesday. He had 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. One of those touchdowns was a run, and he's looked good down there. I think that my concern is, and my question as we head into tomorrow's practice and over the weekend is, are we going to see the offense be able to get to the red zone? Are they going to be able to put a drive together to get down there? And I haven't seen them put any kind of a rhythm in their offense that would lead me to believe that they're going to be able to drive the field on teams.
Good stuff, man. Always love to pick your brain. Tell people what you're working on. If they pick up the Santa Rosa Press-Democrat and they're looking for Niner coverage of camp, what are you going to be writing about this weekend and early next week? Yeah,
well, I'm down at camp every day, so tune in. As far as the over at the Press-Democrat, doing a daily write-up on that. Usually, I've been trying to keep on top of the quarterback situation and give a breakdown of Trey Lance every day as well. So, get over there, check it out. There's daily reports. Get it up there within a couple of hours of practice being done, and then check out the YouTube channel as well.
You're a hustler. Now, what's the name of the channel for people who are on YouTube but haven't checked out your channel yet?
It's just my name, Jackhammer_NFL.
Jackhammer_NFL. Jack, great stuff, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Jack Hammer stopping by on the Krueg Show. Now let's pay the bills and we'll bolt for the door. Hope you enjoyed our Niner coverage today. A little bit of Jack Hammer, a little bit of Grant Cohn, two of the more knowledgeable guys that you're going to find on the 49ers stopping by today on the Krueg Show.
Larry Krueger here for Telmetrics. Thanks to Casey Bateman and the good people at Telmetrics. If you're an occupational therapist, if you're an orthopedic surgeon, a chiropractor, a physical therapist of any kind, Telmetrics is designed for you to use in your practice and will greatly greatly benefit your patients. Telmetrics uses computer vision and artificial intelligence and provides a platform for outpatient rehab therapy services, both in the clinical and the telehealth environments. So using Telmetrics can improve your patient's experience and much more. So for all your sports injury needs, or if you're a physical rehabilitation specialist of any kind, call and make sure you use telmetrics.co, telmetrix.co. And thanks to Casey Bateman and all the good people at Telmetrics for being a proud sponsor of the Krueger. Thank our sponsor, Dan Coach Emilio. Dan is a buddy, and he is a phenomenal retirement planning specialist. And you can contact him today at securemoney.com or at his number 925-628-9966. There's a lot of uncertainty in our world right now, and you want to make sure that your money is secure. That is the key. Danny's got 25 years of experience, born and raised right here in the Bay Area, and he can help you get an immediate 10% premium bonus on your principal retirement account. So give him a call, 925-628-9966. He'll make an appointment with you, and you can sit down. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of a deal. He'll consult with you and come up with a strategy to get you going to where you want to be. Once again, 925-628-9966, securemoney.com on the web. And thanks to Dan Coach Emilio and all the people at Secure Money for being proud sponsors of the Krueg Show.